Thank you.
Alright, so real quick, just a little heads up. I mean, this speech is gonna be a bit more geared towards people, those of us who do kind of watch football. So real quick, when we do think about the wide receiver position, we do automatically think of the Julio Joneses, the Antonio Browns, the Odell Beckhams, the Jarvis Landrys, these flashy players who just have a lot of skills in their locker, right? And they get a lot of run after catch yards, that kind of stuff. They're very fancy, if you will. But today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the more, I guess the players who are a bit more underrated in the league, the ones that aren't, that don't have as much flash to them, that just kind of just catch the ball and they just, they just do the position like, the bare minimum, if you will. I'll be talking to you about Julian Edelman and why he's the most underrated receiver in the league, a top 5, why I consider him a top 5 receiver, and why he is a future Hall of Famer. So within that, I will be talking about why why he is those things, because he is a team player, his style of play, and I mean we gotta have a bit of fun with it. So fantasy football. So first of all, he's a team player. So right off the bat, when he was drafted, he came out of Kent State, was a quarterback, converted to a wide receiver, no questions asked. That kind of shows a lot of character in the way that he's able to kind of adapt to a situation. So that he's able to show his versatility, if you will. Also, he's been deployed in a few different positions. So obviously, going into the draft as a quarterback, we know he could throw the ball. So let's go back to 2016, whole Deflategate thing. Tom Brady suspended for 4 games. We got Patriots dropped down to 2 quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo gets injured, go down to Jacoby Brissett. Right after that, everybody starts thinking about, well, what happens if this guy goes down? Automatically, Julian Edelman essentially steps up to that role if needed be. That, and we'll also take another step back to 2011 where he was deployed as a cornerback, and he did play a few games there. On both sides of the ball, being wide receiver and cornerbacks. Again, it just kind of shows the versatility. And also, he's always been, in a way, overshadowed by other players, being, at the start of his career, being overshadowed by Wes Welker, one of the greatest slot receiver, well, the father of the slot position. And, for the most part of the last decade, Rob Gronkowski, he's been overshadowed by him, yet at the same time, he's found ways to get things in. And in the past years, you have the Brandon Cooks and the Josh Gordons who have kind of overshadowed him with the flashiness and the speed. So again, he's been able to hold his spot and keep that essentially that wide receiver #1 role, even though he has been overshadowed by a lot of these players. Second, I will be talking about his style of play. So he is he's a slot receiver, so he just he gets those in routes, those little small catches, a lot of small gains, but certainly yards that do help the team out, which is very valuable when you're marching down the field, if you will. And he's tough. He's not afraid to actually take a hit. A lot of these players, you'll see them, they'll start running out of bounds. They'll just try to get their juice. He'll try to run a guy over, and he's not necessarily all that big himself. He's I believe 5'9" if I'm not mistaken, so he's on the smaller side. And also he's clutch. He's clutch. He comes up in those big moments when needed by the team. And we'll go back to the 2016, well, the Super Bowl that was in 2017. Big catch against Atlanta. Something that we never, that's a ball that shouldn't have been caught essentially. And he comes up in that situation and brings up those big yards. Not only that, this past Super Bowl, he did. He was just against the secondary, against the cornerbacks that were widely, he played against a team that was widely regarded to have the best defense, and he was still able to tear the defense apart, even though he isn't the fastest receiver and he isn't the strongest either, nor the tallest. And last, I will be talking about fantasy football, and this is a bit more of a kind of personal thing. This is going to apply more towards the leagues, if you will, that have 10, 12 players in them when you don't get when you're not able to have the Mike Evans and Julio Jones on the same team. Again, when you have to go through more players, Julian Edelman, I mean, nobody really picks him up. He was a player that I was able to pick up last second, yet at the same time every week. Again, if you know about fantasy football, 11 points, 12 points, 13 points, 14 points from like a wide receiver 3 position is like something that definitely helps. That was that was pretty cool in the sense that he doesn't get a whole lot of yards, but he gets those catches that do matter, if you will. So in conclusion, I do hope that I was able to convince you guys that Julian Edelman is the top receiver in the league and is definitely bound to be a Hall of Famer. And if what I said didn't convince you, hopefully his 4 rings and Super Bowl MVP will. Thank you.
You didn't mention Dez Bryant. He's relevant. Ray Fitzgerald, so. Ray Fitzgerald.
So Logan, some thoughts?
I thought he had a clean introduction. He previewed his main points pretty well too. I like how he talked about his background, like when he first came in the league, and then how he had different positions and how he played different things. So kind of see like he's kind of an all-around player. I like that. I like how you compared him to like the top players like Odell, Jarvis. I think I heard I'm kind of blanking out, but I think I heard also too like Julio Jones too. I like that. But some things I think you should work on too was sometimes when you start thinking, you kind of look at the ground, you're trying to look at the ceiling instead of like looking at us. Just something about that. I think maybe too, I didn't really hear any like statistics of like his yards and catches, which I think could like really make a bigger impact and point into why he's kind of like an underrated player. Because like we know like the positions he played, but what is his stats, and like you even talked about like mainly his receiver stats, but also he has quarterback stats, which a lot of receivers don't have quarterback stats at all. And you could have also brought up some Hall of Famers that were underrated too that went into the league, like off the top of my head, like Tim Brown. Like when you think of Browns, you think of Antonio Brown, you think of just different kinds of Browns, but you don't think of Tim Brown, who's a Hall of Famer who only Steelers fans really know of. I thought you should maybe like say someone like that. And then you could have also brought up too how he busted his ankle, and then how he busted his ankle for a whole season and came back and won the MVP too for the Super Bowl too. But overall, I liked it. I love football, so I thought it was a pretty solid speech.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on most of the things that you pointed out. I like the opening. You've got a clear statement of what your goal is. Actually, it sounded like you had 2 previews at one point, and I was a little bit confused at that. But then I saw that there's a separate structure on which you're going to organize your information, which was fine. You signposted those things pretty effectively. I think Logan said it well. You identify things, characteristics that are important, so you're giving us a criteria on which to judge. What I think you need to do more is to follow through on those sorts of things with the statistical data or some examples of particular moments where it made a difference, or games where his actions are impactful. I do think it's a little problematic that you give us this warning at the beginning of the speech that it's really for football fans, because that seems like it's going to exclude people in the class. The other thing I think you need to do is you need to kind of tell us why you need to make this argument. Because he's underrated, the idea is that other players are getting more attention, including other players on his own team that might outshine him. But when we're looking down the road toward Hall of Fame, or we're thinking about who the most important players are for a team, it's easy to miss key personnel, and you've got a personal justification for talking about it, the impact that he's had on your fantasy play. I think we need a little bit more explanation about why the rest of us should care about that, including people who don't particularly care about football. Maybe there's a reason why they could be motivated about this also. I thought the presentation was relatively solid. I didn't notice the problem with the eye contact that Logan's talking about, but sometimes I'm looking down taking notes, so I'm sure he's accurate and I'm less accurate. Okay, thank you.